well. It's been a while, hasn't it? Huh, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back. I knew that I wanted to bring back the Comics Are Dope podcast, but it took me a minute to figure out exactly what this show was going to be without our forever co-host, my man Skip and Tosh. But I think there's no better way to celebrate the things that we find dope about comics than to speak with those who are directly involved with the comic creation process. So this is going to be the first in a series of interviews, thanks to Nick and Amy over at Dynamite Entertainment, speaking with Dynamite creators, those who are involved in some of their most recent licensed comic projects. So late 2022, it was announced that Dynamite Entertainment had the license to create Disney comics. So with that, they announced Gargoyles and Darkwing Duck and a host of Disney Villains titles. So the latest Disney Villains series to hit shelves was Disney Villains Cruella, and that is written by Sweeney Boo, who is an artist in her own right. And so I got the opportunity to speak with Sweeney just ahead of the release of Disney Villains Cruella De Vil #1. We talked about her career, how she got started in comics, what inspires her art, the differences between writing a comic and drawing a comic, or writing a comic or scripting a comic for herself to draw versus scripting a comic for someone else to then go in and create. We even talk about some of the differences between writing for yourself and then writing for a licensed property for such a major corporation like Disney. So it was a really fun and insightful conversation. And if you enjoy it, I would highly recommend that you go out to your local comic shop and pick up Disney Villains Cruella De Vil issue #1. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to the rest of the series. And you can always order those books online at dynamite.com/Disney. So huge thanks to Nick and Amy for helping me set this up. And without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Sweeney Boo. Today, I am interviewing a very special guest. And I know you saw the title and the thumbnail, but I got to build the suspense anyway. So my next guest is a comic artist, illustrator, and writer who's written and worked for pretty much everyone: Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Archie. And of course, we're here to talk about a brand new series here for Dynamite. And we're talking about Cruella De Vil with writer Sweeney Boo. Welcome, Sweeney. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I'm happy to have you here. It's really, really excited to have this conversation. Now, I guess before we get too deep into it, like I said, we are here to talk about Disney Villains Cruella De Vil. And I got to give a huge thanks to Nick and the team over at Dynamite for coordinating this conversation with us. So there will be plenty of talk about Cruella, but I like to start at the beginning. So, Sweeney, for those who aren't as familiar with you, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got started?
Yeah. So I come from France, where I grew up like reading bande dessinée and that like very, very classic type of comic. And I got introduced to comics like maybe 15 years ago now, with like a Spider-Man story, and I was like, ooh, this is different. I like this. And from then on, when I moved to Canada, I was like, I really like dove into the comic world. And I really got my start in 2019 with Marvel Action Captain Marvel for IDW, which was like like Sam Mags, and it was like a really, really, really fun ride, and I learned a lot. And since then, I worked on covers, and I wrote my own books for HarperCollins, and which one, it's called Over My Dead Body. And I have another one for Boom called Eat and Love Yourself. But I love being able to dabble in a little bit of everything, which is like what I keep trying to do even now. So Cruella was like a fun new challenge.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't realize you started in 2019. What's funny is I was doing some research, just looking to see the stuff you've worked on before, and I remember vividly the Marvel Action Captain Marvel because I started reading comics in 2019, and that was because
Okay.
at the time I had a 9-year old. She was 9 in 2019. And so we went to a free comic book day event. And that kind of just, they had like local artists and stuff there. And she draws and sculpts and paints, does all kinds of stuff. It's crazy. She's 13 now.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but one of the books that I would buy for her was the Marvel Action Captain Marvel book. And so it was just funny because I'm like, wow, so you're a part of some of my earliest comic memories. And honestly, some of the best because my daughter, while she still will dabble in comics every now and then, she's like, yeah, Dad, I don't really like superheroes. So now she's more into, she's in the band, she sings and stuff like that. So it's been fun. Uh, but that's really cool that you're a part of that.
That's so nice, like to be able to share that with your kids. I remember when we worked on it, the fact that it was more targeted to children was like such a fun idea.
Absolutely. And you've done work that sort of ranges, right? Like you've got stuff that's clearly aimed at kids, you've got stuff that's aimed at a teen audience, and then you're working with even older, more adult
Mhm.
oriented things, right? Like even right now you're working on Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
How is that?
it's so much fun. Teeny's an incredible writer, and every time I get a script, I have no idea what I'm gonna get, but I know it's gonna be like crazy in a really good way. It really pushed my boundaries in the best way possible because I love to, be challenged.
Hmm,
So getting to, I don't know, draw like giant Dalmatians and just like space rabbits and stuff like
right.
that. It's just been like really funny.
That's funny. Like, and Harley has become sort of the fourth pillar of the DC universe. We've got the
Yeah.
Trinity, but then we've got Harley Quinn, who's arguably just as popular these days. And it's just fun because I remember Harley Quinn from the Batman animated series, and never would have thought she would be as big as she is now.
I think it's so terrific that she was introduced as, she's Joker's girlfriend or whatever.
Hmm.
And I remember when Birds of Prey came out, it was like, the emancipation of Harley Quinn, but it is really what happened. She is this like big, like basically queer icon in like
Hmm.
the DC universe now. And she is really interesting because she was a villain and no, not anymore. And she's
Right.
like very complicated. So I think she has like a lot of layers to her that makes her very appealing.
Absolutely. And when you took over on that title, she was just coming out of being like in the Bat family, trying to be a Robin for a little while. But they really have done a lot to sort of establish her independence apart from the Joker. And then they even, had to give the Joker a sort of replacement. And you've been
Yeah.
instrumental in her story as well. So you've been working on Punchline for a while.
Yeah, it was pretty much one of the early stories that I got to work on when I was
Mm,
started working with DC. And it was Sam Johnson, James Tynion who were writing, so I knew it was going to be great.
mm,
And it's also fun to like work on a basically a villain story because like you get to just like go wild with the expressions and just like it's just yeah, it was also a really cool experience.
awesome. What would you say? Um, how would you classify the difference, right, in working on Harley versus working on Punchline?
The tone for
Mm,
sure was very different. Even though my work is like very colorful
mhm.
and I still had that with Punchline, but like her character was definitely a bit more grounded and a little bit more sinister.
Yeah.
Where with Harley, I have no problem maybe pushing the boundaries a little bit with the way she expresses herself
Mhm.
or her surroundings and even her clothes or stuff like that. So there's a little bit more, I'd say liberty, but
Mhm.
not necessarily, but just just a bigger opportunity to just be like, what if we do this like crazy thing?
Right.
And we can.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Harley definitely has a level of zaniness, I would say.
Hmm.
Especially since her new animated series has come out. And so you get to do, like you said, things that you wouldn't normally get to do, or like with someone like Alexis, who's just kind of, it's very, like you said, grounded, right?
Yeah,
And we're seeing a darker story. We're seeing a more, um, I guess, familiar sort of Gotham story where Harley's kind of expanded beyond the Gotham box in a way.
exactly. Because like, with Punchline, the pages that I took on, it was like taking place in jail, and
Mm-hmm.
like it was all very, it's like we said, grounded. With Harley, it's just, yeah, multiverse and just colors and weird looking aliens and stuff like that. So, very different.
Right, for sure. And so, so you got into comics in 2019. One question that I had for you, right? I
Hmm.
think as artists, we all have like our aspiration, like things that we would love to do. And then we have our expectation, the things that we feel we'll be allowed to do. And I wanted to learn from you maybe what some of your aspirations have been, what your expectations of everything were, and maybe what the difference is between both of those and where we are now.
Um, so after I graduated like high school,
Mm,
I basically grinded for like 8 years
mm,
to like really work in comics. I had a day job, but I would just like do stuff.
mm,
And it took this long. So I feel like maybe I've learned to not have that much expectation, to see what I get and see what I can bring. And I love getting something that has rules. So
mm.
I see how I can break them a little bit
Okay.
instead of getting too much like liberty into doing something. So I feel like I got into it with um, pretty open mind. I felt very lucky, and I still do, to work with the people that I work with.
Mm,
So every time I get an opportunity, I'm just like, this is great. I feel very lucky. Um, and then I feel like the expectation is probably more like, how can I do this on time?
right.
Which is what I battle with the most now. But you know, at first, when I wanted to do bande dessinée and back in France, I really tried, and I didn't feel like the community was just for me.
Mm,
It was very more at the time. It probably has changed. I mean, like I've been here for more than 10 years now, but like it felt very close-minded, and the comic industry and the people that I get to work with, editors, other creators, are just like so warm and welcoming that
mm,
like I feel like the expectation that we all have is just to make something great in the end.
right.
So as long as we're all on the same page with that, it's usually a pretty good ride.
Awesome. I want to ask, right, because I think we get caught up a lot of times in like the names on the front of a book, right? We'll look at the writer, we'll look at the artist, and then we all make our decisions on, maybe what we'll buy or how we feel about
Mhm.
what we'll buy based on that. Um, but like you alluded to, right? Comics are very collaborative, and there's not just the writer and artist, there's editors and publishers and all sorts of people in between that
Mhm.
help facilitate that work being done. Can you talk about the importance of, I guess, though all of those different parts working together, and maybe how your eyes were open to that collaborative process as you started to break in?
I feel like when you go into comics, because it's so collaborative, it's just you really have to let the ego aside,
Mm,
because everyone is going to have an opinion, which is technically great. Because I feel like in the end, all we want is to make something good.
mm,
So usually, the writer is going to work with the editor. You get pretty free range on, like, you're not really like they're hands on, but not too much either. It's usually like how maybe like keeping like the story in check or like the continuity or stuff like that. And then as the artist, you get the script and then you start working on the layouts, and then you're going to get feedback on the layouts because once again, the editor wants the storytelling to like flow. And honestly, it's been like 5 years now that I've worked in comics, and like I am so grateful with it to like every editor that I've worked with, because I feel like it's their job to push you to like do a little bit better next time. How about changing an angle, looking at the scene differently and stuff like that. So they're really, really important. And pencil stage, ink stage, color stage, like you always send out to like get feedback.
Right.
But also like I personally do all of that on my own, but there's still other creative teams, either DC, Marvel, or everywhere else that do, like, you have an inker, you're going to have a penciler, you're going to have someone who do the colors.
Right.
I have someone who do flats for me. So I can be, faster. So there's gonna be people that I send my pages to and do like all the like little flats so I can do my colors faster. And then after that, you have the letter. I lettered comics for like years before I started working in comics. And that's also such an important part of the storytelling.
For sure.
Because it has to flow with the pages. Even when you create your art, you have to think about the speech bubbles and where they're going to be placed, so it's easy to read. So it's a pipeline, It's like you have someone doing something, and we have to think about the people that come after us in the pipeline,
right?
And how to make their job faster and stuff like that. So yeah, it's extremely collaborative.
Oh, so that's true. So I want to go back in time a little bit, right? Because I think most of our audience, at least mine, right, will probably know you from your work at DC. You've been doing a lot of work on Harley Quinn, but you've been doing all sorts of variant covers and things as well. Like, your art is amazing, but you're a writer as well. And I just finished, and I'll have to like actually go through and do a deep read, but I just finished with Eat and Love Yourself, which is a graphic novel that you first kickstarted, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
back in like 2017.
Wow. So you kickstarted it, and then it was able to be published through Boom as an OGN. What were the seeds of that story? And I guess, as someone who both writes and illustrates comics, how do you decide what story you want to tell, or what's important enough to kind of go through all of the process yourself, as opposed to just sort of being open to drawing?
This story was based on my own. So when I struggled with an eating disorder in my late teens, it was really hard for me to find any kind of like support system. And I guess because I was really into comics at the time, I didn't find anything about that either in there. So later on, when I started getting better, and I was just like, I really wanted to explore that. And also, it was kind of cathartic.
Right.
It was definitely very challenging to have that as a sort of a starting book. Because it was also like, it was pretty big, but also like it was pretty deep in terms of what I wanted to share. So I wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what I achieved, but I just hope that in the end, like the book would like bring some comfort to someone. So I guess that was the end goal with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I enjoy that it's, how do I say this without spoiling the book? So for those who aren't familiar, Eat and Love Yourself is about this girl, Mindy, who, as you said, does have an eating disorder, or struggles with an eating disorder. And she sort of finds like these magical chocolates that allow her to sort of time travel and observe herself. She can't like interfere, but she can observe herself going through these different situations. And she's kind of like looking like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, and kind of trying to tell herself all the things that she wishes someone maybe would have told her at the time. And what I loved about it was the way it ended, right? A lot of times with these books, especially with like, teen girls, right? Of course, maybe the impetus for things or a setting is like against some sort of romantic relationship, right? Or, I'm afraid to talk to this guy and so on. And one thing I loved about it was that the redemption for Mindy wasn't necessarily found in the male attention. It really was about, like the title says, loving herself. And I thought that was a great lesson to learn or to watch. I thought it was really beautiful. And it's a great story.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like recovering or from something like that. It has to be. It's very personal. It's very deep. And so you do have to look at yourself, and you do have to try to learn to like take care of yourself, which is really hard. And I wanted to have this idea of like very often when people are very deep in their struggles, you're going to have loved ones that don't see the same thing as you, that see you as like a beautiful person, and they're going to tell you,
right? And
you just can't hear it. But maybe at some point you can, and it's when you start to believe it that it really matters.
Right, for sure. And maybe it just hits home because I'm a dad. My daughter's 13, so it's like these things. I'm watching for these things all the time. Yeah. But so thank you for telling that story, right? And I guess it's one thing, right, to be on the other side of it. And I think we're at this point now where we're getting a lot of different types of storytelling, and publishers are seeking out stories like that to tell. But 2017 was a different time, and so for you to dream of the idea, see it through to completion, and then kickstart to get the funds together to finish, like that's a huge task. So I thank you for doing all that work to bring that story to us.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. That's really kind of you. It was definitely a learning curve, and it had its ups and downs, but I'm really happy that, it's out. It's a little something, but what really brings me joy is the fact that people still read it, and I still like get messages. I meet some people at cons sometimes that, read the book and tell me that, they showed it at school and stuff like that. And that's exactly what I wanted out of it.
Awesome. I'm glad that people are seeing it. So we're here to talk about Cruella. Now that I've brought this to such a touching point, right? But we're talking about Cruella. And first of all, this is a series that Dynamite's got this Disney license. And it's funny because just as a reader and fan, Dynamite as a publisher, I'd pretty much stayed away from until they got this Disney license. Let's just say they're known for other things, right? That they bring to comics, right? What was it like getting a call or maybe the email from Dynamite for a Disney property?
It was absolutely crazy and cool at the same time, because when the editor reached out to me, he was very blunt about the fact, hey, do you want to write Cruella? And I wrote before, and I wrote for myself, but I had never got asked to do it, and especially for something like this. So I was just like, there's no way I can say no. Plus Cruella, I find, is like she's like one of those like staple, like, Disney villains.
Yes.
And I love her, even though she's so problematic.
Right.
That it's like, I feel like it's a really good sign when you get an email, you're like, oh my God, what can I do with this? Like, am I the right person for this? Right. And then you sit with it a little bit, but then you're like, oh, maybe I could do something like that. And then you start getting ideas, and you're like, okay, if I start getting ideas, then probably, maybe. Yeah. So we started to chat about it like really soon, and I was like, yeah, I'm in. And I think it was like 2 weeks after I had like a first draft of like what the miniseries could be. And it was like 4 or 5 months of like that, and it was like really cool.
So I'm curious to know what your process is like. 'Cause you said you get the email, you immediately start ideating. Okay, like
Mhm.
what could this be? Um, Obviously, as an artist, you're working from a script. You're working with someone, who has a version of a story in their heads already, and you're kind of bringing that to life, right? But when you're the beginning of the assembly line, so to speak, what's the difference? How do you approach those differently, or do you?
Well, let's say that it was like definitely a bit more different with this too because it's Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked in video games before with like properties.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that like established characters have like some kind of guidelines attached to them.
Right.
For example, in one time I worked in on a game that was a Hello Kitty game,
Okay.
and Hello Kitty has a sister,
Mm-hmm.
but Hello Kitty's sister cannot exist without her.
Uh,
So like if you show her sister, Hello Kitty has to be there. So that's that kind of thing that is just like it's kind of crazy. You're like, what? So I was ready for that kind of stuff.
mm-hmm.
So when Nate, the editor, reached out, he was like, okay, this is what we can do. This is what we really can't do. Here's are some ideas where we could go. But ultimately, the big thing was like it has to take place after the first movie, so the
Okay.
first cartoon that came out, and we have to ignore all of the like live actions that have taken place ever since. It's
Okay.
basically like right after or something like that. It has to be like some kind of like adventure,
Okay.
and which like it felt maybe you could be like, oh my god, it's kind of like constricting or whatever, but not at all actually, because I feel like people do know Cruella nowadays like much more because of like all the live actions and all this that
Yes.
stuff that has been added to her.
Mm-hmm.
But it gave me some type of like kind of like clean slate because in the original movie, she is not really like just explored that much.
Right.
She Anita's friend
Mm-hmm.
from a long time.
Right.
She wants to make a fur coat, and that's what she like works towards.
Right.
So I got to maybe like chat with Nate, being like, maybe we can like introduce some new characters and try to like go in one way or another.
Mm.
And what was great is that he had a lot of input, and I feel like his work might have been the worst part because he has to be in the middleman, he has to be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you have all these ideas, that's great, and then he brings them to Disney, and Disney comes back with like yes, no, stuff like that.
Mm.
So once we had a bit of an idea of what we wanted to do with Cruella, I basically wrote down a summary of every issue.
Mm.
So you write a little paragraph of like, this is what's gonna happen in the miniseries. And then I did a breakdown of like issue 1, issue 2, 3 to like 5.
Okay.
And then you get like feedback from that. I am someone who I have to have everything written out before I can like write an issue.
Mm.
So once that got approved, then I do a much deeper breakdown where I basically, I don't know, I have no way of saying this is like the right way to do this.
Uh-huh.
I've learned to write like that on my own, but I basically break down every scene. Like scene 1 has like 3 pages, and this
Mm-hmm.
is what happens. And I wrote each issue even more deeper like that, and then got feedback on that, and then you start working on each issue based on that. And that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah, I've heard that Disney can be, I mean, is there any company that has to be more protective of their characters, right? Like Cruella De
Yeah.
Vil's been around for like a million years because these animated films are such
Mhm.
classics. And then, like you said, they've had all these sequels and the straight to video movies. And now we're getting these comic book, in some cases, they're prequels. In some cases, they take place after. And it's like they have to be able to exist without messing up anything else that exists currently or may
Exactly.
exist in the future. And so it's a difficult pocket to inhabit. Um, but I'm excited about it because, like I said, Dynamite, the Disney villain series in particular, like they've been
Hmm.
really, really good. I think my favorite of them was also by an artist, Sue Lee,
Yes,
Maleficent.
it's Maleficent. And
I
Sully is
really,
yeah, she's fantastic. She's one of my best friends.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Maleficent is so good, and it's
Hmm.
what I loved about it. What just collecting it issue to issue is, I mean, yeah, the story is the story, right? We know that Maleficent is evil, and we know that anyone that's tried to come up against her has failed. And we don't necessarily need to know everything that we expanded on in the Angelina Jolie movies, right? To appreciate her as a character. And so we got this sort of series of people coming up to challenge her. And of course, they all fail. But what I loved about it was seeing the brushwork on the page.
Hmm.
And there were these long sequences where it was just storytelling. There's no word balloons, there's nothing going on, but it just your eye just goes across the page like she guides you so effortlessly. That was awesome. But anyway, I say all that to say, I've been enjoying these Disney villains miniseries, and I'm very excited for Cruella De Vil. So you are working with Miriana Puglia. Am I saying that
Yeah.
correctly?
I this is how I say their name as well.
Okay.
So I hope this is right, but yeah.
That's the cons of everybody working remotely, just like
Mhm. Yeah.
talking through emails. Um, so what's it like handing off your scripts to another artist and getting those pages back?
It's been amazing. I done like a couple of cons since I had started working on Cruella and starting like I had chatted with writers and being like, this is so cool. I totally get it. Like you you write something that you definitely have like a clear idea in your head of like this is what happened in this panel and this is what
Mm-hmm.
happened in this one. And like definitely the way since I also draw, I feel like I have a way of like I could definitely see the page.
Mm-hmm.
But then getting it through the lens of another creator is so really, it's so interesting to see how someone else's mind works.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been so like honestly so exciting. Every time I got a page, I would like I'd get giddy and I'd be like, oh my God, she did this like that. That is like so brilliant. That
Right.
even like I get inspiration from like my own work, being like, oh, that's such a cool way to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's been very rewarding and like it really makes me feel like, yeah, they like she does like most of like the whole thing. She takes that and she definitely makes it her own.
Mm.
And I love the way she draws Cruella because like I feel like Cruella is so unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
And she's ready to just like she's like boiling all the time and like just a little thing is gonna set her off
Right.
that she like really got this like thing in her art
Mm-hmm.
and the way she draws her that like makes Cruella look just so perfectly unhinged.
That is good. I love that description. Unhinged. Because that's exactly what Cruella is. And it's so funny because she presents as like, oh, I've got it all together. Look at my
Hmm.
fur. I'm checking myself in the mirror. Like,
Exactly.
I'm all perfectly put together until you set me off. And you're doing covers for the series, which is awesome. I'm looking at the cover to issue one right now. And let me see. Can I share my screen? I'm gonna share my screen. See, through the magic of editing, I can put it on. I can put it on the screen no matter what. But I just want us to be able to look at this and talk about it together because I love the composition. It is like the way the dogs, one, they're all looking at her, but they all direct your eyes to her. And of course, she's looking at herself, which
Obviously.
is perfect. It's perfect for Cruella. Oh, wait, she's not looking at herself. She's looking at you. That is
She
great.
and yeah, it's it's so interesting to have someone else like analyze a cover like this because it's not necessarily the stuff that I think about
Mm.
when I draw, but yeah, I guess it is definitely there.
Man, I love this. So I know we can't really spoil anything.
Hmm.
And I know I don't get to get preview pages. But I would love to know what's the general story for Cruella?
So basically, we are right after the events of the first animated movie, and Cruella has been kind of investigated on the kidnapping of the Dalmatians,
Okay.
but ultimately been exonerated.
Mm,
Her co-conspirators are nowhere to see, so she's on her own.
mm,
But what I really wanted to explore is that, as we can see in the movie, like the dogs talk to each other and they all
right.
communicate within the city and stuff like that. So they are not happy with her and they are very intent to let her know
Mm,
that they're not forgiving her and not forgetting anything. So basically, Cruella is just trying to do everything that she can to like redeem herself in terms of like the society.
mm.
So she has all these like public, very like staged events to like make her look good, and the
Mm.
dogs are just gonna ruin everything every time.
That is great.
Yeah.
No, that sounds like an awesome premise. Because again, I know with these stories, it's like we can't go too crazy. We can't like,
hmm
we can't kill off Cruella, right? But we've got to do something that's fun. And I'm excited to get these issues in my hand and read them.
There's definitely going to be a little like a more, you know, storyline that is really gonna, you know, like evolve and takes place over the 5 issues.
Mm,
And bring back some characters that were well known, but we also got to create some new characters to the story and maybe some people that were more like actually close
mm.
to Cruella. So it's really interesting to maybe explore her personal feelings a little bit more and see a softer side to her, maybe if there is one.
Maybe that's gonna be fun to see. Now I'm curious because you said you liked having the sort of limitations and
Mhm.
understanding the boxes you've got to play in. But I'm curious to know if there's something that maybe you wanted to do, or maybe that you were surprised to find that you couldn't do with Cruella. If there's an example of something like that.
It's probably something very small.
Okay.
It's probably also just something. It's barely nothing, but it's
Hmm.
just smoking.
Oh, she can't smoke?
Gorilla cannot smoke anymore. Which is like it's fair. I understand smoking is really bad.
Mm,
Um, and but it was like, even growing up, I always had this image of her when she first appeared. She's like in the movie, so you have her silhouette at the door, which is like already very ominous.
uh,
But when she actually appears and gets in the house, she has this like huge cloud
uh-huh.
of like green gross smoke
Hmm.
following her.
Right.
Um, and I felt like it would, for me in my head, it was always like so attached to her character,
Yeah.
which is very trivial in the end of the like at the end of the day. But yeah, really cannot smoke anymore.
That's
She
funny
takes
because
care
I,
of herself.
right. Well, that's good. She could live a little bit longer.
Exactly.
It's funny. I remember the smoke. It's funny, like, because you remember as a kid, you just kind of process it as like, oh, here's the evil lady and the evil
hmm
smoke. Um, but I guess we have had a lot of tobacco aimed at kids over the years, and so it's a good thing to clean up, I guess.
It is. It is. I have to admit, though, it is very funny when my husband and I watch movies or whatever, and we're like, "Oh, people are smoking!" Like you actually get like you don't see it as much anymore. That when it happens, it's like, "Whoa!"
Right. Like I remember watching a bunch of Looney Tunes and like bugs like rolling up cigarettes was a thing. Like all, all like you could never do that on kids' TV now.
The
That
stuff
is
that we used to watch.
right. So man, well, I'm really, really excited for Disney Villains Cruella De Vil. Issue one is out January 10th. So just a couple weeks before my birthday, so that's gonna be fun. And it's
Ooh, fellow
dynamite.
Capricorn.
So I'm an Aquarius. I'm the 22nd.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
what's funny is my older brother's the 21st, but I think he's also an Aquarius. I don't really know. I don't really follow the zodiac,
Fair.
but
It
uh,
changes sometimes for some
oh yeah,
reason. So,
I do know my Chinese zodiac is I'm the sheep, which
oh,
I always wanted to be like a dragon or a snake or something. I felt like a sheep was kind of boring, but that was the thing when I was looking at the Chinese menu, like, oh, I'm a sheep. Okay.
I feel like the ship has much more to offer than we can see.
You know, we got all these clothes and stuff. We got wool.
There you go.
You know, we can't have varsity Letterman jackets without wool. So
There you go.
sheep,
See?
we're
What
important.
does the dragon have to offer? It can breathe fire, but like,
He just
come
looks
on.
cool,
Yeah,
but he's
that's fair.
mythical, so you can't get a dragon coat. So, well, Sweeney, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. That was really exciting, and I'm glad to have met you.
You too. Thank you. It was a really good chat.
Thanks. Now, real quick, where can people find you on social media, and what else should they be on the lookout for from you?
So I'm everywhere on social at Sweeney Boo,
Okay.
which it's BOO. It's like Boo. And I'm still working on Harley Quinn, which comes out every month.
Okay.
In the top of my head right now, I cannot remember when the next issue comes out, but
Mhm.
sometimes, sometime
Don't
this month or the next.
don't worry, I
Um,
got you. Let's see. Issue 20 or issue 35 is out the day after Christmas, so next week, next Wednesday.
yes, which has been someone else drew this issue, and if do you have the name of the artist who drew the issue? Because I
Let's
do not
find it.
have it. Thank you so
Uh,
much.
this time around, it is. They've got it listed wrong. They've got you on the cover.
No, I did the
Yeah.
cover, but the interior was someone else.
Oh yeah, they got to. DC's got to fix that. They've got you credited with issue 35.
Shoot,
So we'll
because
find out.
I received the comps and the interiors are brilliant. It is so cool to see like pages and the character that I've been drawing for like issues drawn by someone else, and the storytelling is really really fun.
That is awesome. I'm trying to do some research. I'm trying to see if we could find this artist real quick.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Logan Gerber for the art
Okay.
for issue 35. And well, actually I'm gonna show some pages right now, but it is really really incredible and
Ooh,
cartoony, and yeah, they took over for that issue. It's just so cool and super fun. So people should definitely pick it up.
that is awesome. Yeah, we're gonna have to have a chat with DC because even Lunar's got you listed here. But no worries. Very cool. Well, again, it was awesome talking to you.
You
I will
too.
be
Thank
on the
you.
lookout for Harley Quinn 36 when you return. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and yeah, happy holidays to you and your family.
Thank you. Same to you. Now, of course, I'm biased, but I really, really enjoyed that conversation. A huge thanks to Sweeney for taking the time. And again, a huge thanks to Nick and Amy at Dynamite Entertainment for scheduling or helping to get all this, get the ball rolling on all this. Now, as you could probably tell when you were listening, we did conduct this interview over video, and that full video is available right now on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/@comicsaredope and you can watch that full conversation and see all the visuals that we were showing off. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos, not just interviews, but unboxings, reviews, haul videos, and pretty much everything in between. Huge thanks to you guys for sticking around through our hiatus. We'll be back sooner than you think with another amazing interview. So until then, not sure what you're working on today, but stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.